Hi Collective, welcome to the channel. I'm Crystal, an Earth Angel, and this is going to be my Cancer full moon reveal. Okay, I was told that I needed to put more of my story out there, and with this being the first full moon of 2025, I've really been realizing that it is definitely time to let go of everything from the past for me to start new. This is the time that justice is coming in for all of the Earth Angels. It very much is. And if you've been looking at my readings, I've been talking about how the Earth Angels have been set free. The final ones that have hung out to the very end of the entrapment that they have found themselves in. Turn it down. But due to their families, okay, entrapping them and lovers and things like that. Because you know, the twin flames is, no, turn it down. The twin, yes, because I'm working. The twin flames stories, you know, are, the true twin flames are very much the chosen. The 144,000 is, it was kind of set up as like for us to have that help, that rescue, that emergence, that reason to get us to keep fighting. Because times that your twin does come in is times that you feel as though you want to give up, times as though you need that mirror to remember what you're fighting for. Okay, now not all of them play out that way, but they take a lot of love and compassion, because especially the twins are often attacked by the enemy and turned against each other, and without having that love and that fight for no other, like to not give up, you just simply give up and move on. So they're often the most pain is experienced to be able to forgive. They're not these beautiful love stories. I mean, if they're healed, yes, and they've healed through all the trauma, which that's why I say they're to come, right? But they're not just like these love stories that, and there's so much wrong conception with the twin flame journey. That's why literally, like, I've given up on that. I've sacrificed to me that journey. Like, I've had to take on my twin's contract because he's been on such heavily attacked and everything, and he hasn't been able to overcome all of the pain that his childhood brought him to be able to awaken to this journey. And that's what I mean, that's the truth of it. And I've talked a little bit about the twin flame story, my story, right? And there's a lot that goes into them, so I'm going to be talking a little bit about the twin flame story towards the end. But so I've been thinking a lot about like my childhood, what I've experienced, what I've had to release and surrender, thinking about his, right? And how, you know, the pain that he's had to endure, and he's been doing work and trying to forgive some of his childhood while we've been in separation over the last few weeks. So it brought me about to like, let me look at how far I've came. Let me look at my story. And it's about changing that perception too, and me realizing like, wow, like I am an amazing mother, because everything that I've went through and I've endured, like, it's never stopped me from loving my children. I will never give up on my children, even if I have to create boundaries due to the spell work and manipulation and control that they may be under due to their sinister fathers that was also targeted due to me or part of my mission, right? But it's always about having that forgiveness. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about my story. It is going to be graphic, so I'm going to put a disclaimer up here, like if you don't want to hear some dark, sinister stuff, then I would not watch this reading. But it's also to empower other Earth Angels to know that, you know, we need to share more of our stories, because we show others how we've healed. And it's also for us to understand that that's why we're being vindicated and rescued and getting the life that we desire and all of our dreams, and to remember the promise that you were not going to experience all of that. God would not let all of that happen to for it to not be made right. And this is the time now where you're letting Most High make things right for you. And by doing that, you let go of everything. That's what we agreed to. It's answering the call is literally like we were already here on mission work the entire time. But you have to allow Most High to come in and rescue you by you going and sacrificing and letting everything go and just going to Most High. That's why so many chosen ones here in isolation at this time. You know, you've healed everything, you're full and complete in yourself. And what I want to say with the twin flame journey is like, whether you have a twin or not, whether you identify with that, you found them, you're waiting for them, like you shouldn't be waiting, because you need to know that the journey was always about being full and complete within yourself. Because if you're not full and complete, you're not going to be able to come in alignment with somebody full and complete. And I need to tell you right now, not all of you, you're twins, not all made it. There are a lot of us earth angels that have not made it and have been trapped and are still in the darkness and are the fallen. So for a lot of you, like your twins are fallen, right? If you know you want to relate with that, or for some of you, just some other contracts, right? Could be just other soulmates, right? That you were contracted to, that you may be struggling with or whatever. But that's what I mean when you're full and complete within yourself and with Most High, right? Then you align with others that are full and complete. And literally, like, that is what's happening, right? That's why it's like you ultimately set yourself free by releasing the twin flame journey. If you stay into it, then you're fully not healing from it. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not about having that other complete you. That's why there's so much misconception with the twin flame journeys. Okay, so I'm going to be explaining my story a little bit, because a lot of the chosen, the 144, the earth angels, a lot of them don't realize everything that they endured was in fact because they were earth angel and their light was sought out at a very young age. Not every family has an earth angel in their family. As you often hear, there's many black sheeps and the ones that are different, the rebel and all of that, which are often the earth angels, but not every family has one. The 144,000, the OGs, okay, original earth angels, incarnated into some of the darkest families, and we did that to try to save the bloodlines of those families. So we were incarnated in many families of Masonic, Illuminati, where a lot of dark, sinister sacrifices, child abuse, souls that, like many of you, were sacrificed by your families at a very young age because of the families being so in the darkness. It's like they had a choice, right, to be saved by the earth angel or to go against it. And many decided to sacrifice their own children to use their beautiful light to be in dark ways. It's like they knew. These families knew that you were different. They knew the light in your eyes. They knew the love that you carried. They knew that there was something different about you, because many of you earth angels exhibited very profound gifts at a very young age. And many of the families got jealous and envy and hid and kind of used M as like their golden egg, their source. I'm getting like kind of like the Rapunzel vibes, right? So many of you were isolated, and it's like they knew that you know, like she knew that she had powers and gifts, but the witch or whatever stole her and used. So for some of you, literally the chosen were literally, some were taken from those families. Okay. That's why, like, I fully don't know the story behind what happened with me, if I was taken or not, because my family, I know my brother, my half-brother, was taken from my family and was in CPS custody when they kidnapped him out of CPS custody, and I guess while they were on the run, apparently I was born. And there's been a lot of things where I've just always felt that something is not fully right about the story, right? As I anyways. And my twin was adopted, right? Now these, and we've been finding out too, in the collective too, like some were literally like switched, given up, like a lot of these things, right? And especially a lot of the chosen were born into like families like where they were given up due to drug addictions and things like that. Like I said, we were born into the dark. So whatever your story may look like, but for a lot of you, like but it doesn't matter really your birth family anyways, because it was always meant to play out a certain way. So, you know, so for a lot of you, you need to remember to heal from that. Okay. All right. So anyway, I wanted to talk about my childhood, right? What my childhood was like. So I was constantly isolated as a young child. It was like, I was always like, I was in trouble, right? I was always like, I was a good child. I always followed the rules. I remember fearing my father. I remember being able to see spirits and entities and things like that in my parents. I could literally see when these demonic forces, and it was often when they were using drugs and alcohol, so I would keep my distance away a lot. But I remember from a very young age always having to do chores, always having to clean, always having to do everything. So I'd always, you know, but it was still like I was always in trouble. I was always grounded if things weren't perfect, you know. And I remember so young, like I had to stand on chairs and things like that just to be able to do dishes, and standing on chairs and stools to be able to do laundry. And I remember always having to do all of these chores, and always, so it was like I was kind of like Cinderella in a way. Like I always had to do everything. My parents were never there for dinners, things like that. They went out to eat all the time. They used to brag about how my father had such a high position that he could take his wife out, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, out to fine restaurants and all of that, where we were left to create our own foods and stuff. So my brother was left a lot to raise me at a young age, and we were 5 years apart, so he left me a lot alone. And even when my parents would leave for work, 6 o'clock in the morning, my brother would go to school, like I'd be alone. I remember being in first, second grade, being alone, waiting for, and so afraid, right, that I would, you know, miss the bus, not lock up the house, that things would happen, you know, like it'd still be dark outside and I'd be alone. And then I'd get home from school and, you know, I'd have to find the hidden key, get inside, and I'd be alone for hours and hours, you know, alone. So I was alone a lot. I was, and it was only just me and my brother until he got kicked out. But we'll get to that later. And my parents, my mother and my father, because we were moved away from family. I was moved away at a very young age. It was always, toxic family, all of this. Like I never got to meet my maternal grandmother, grandfather. There's certain aunts and uncles that I was never allowed to meet. I only got visits with them growing up. So I didn't grow up having family other than my very sadistic parents that were always drugging, using drugs and alcohol, and when they were there. Otherwise, when they weren't there, they were off at clubs and bars and all of that. So I was isolated a lot. Then it was like I was always in trouble, so I was grounded a lot. I remember my friends like, you're always in trouble. It was always like restriction, I was called. It was always restricted. I was always grounded. I was always in trouble, getting like my TV taken away, my privileges, all of that for weeks at a time, right? You know, but I do believe in a way that's what led me, though, where I feel that I was basically raised by the gods. Because I remember going to praying very young, right, asking for help whenever I'd get scared and things like that. So it allowed me to get closer to Most High, right, at a very young age, right? So yeah, I was isolated a lot, right? I was very sick as a child too, because I had got heavily dosed. I was told I was given Tylenol a lot to get me to sleep. I was told that my mother and father even kidded about it, how they would prop bottles. They made something in my crib just to be able to feed me, you know. So obviously I was isolated from baby, right? And So I was dosed a lot with Tylenol and things like that. So I remember always, I had a very low immune system, right, where I was always getting very, very sick and things like that. And being sick and being alone a lot as a child. I remember being scared a lot, having to call. I remember I try to call the office, things like that when I get scared. Like, I just remember being isolated a lot, right? And then so being taken away from friends. And then as I got older and became a teen, when I got my very first boyfriend and friends, I was moved away out of the city, moved to the country for isolation, you know. And then around that time, my parents were trying to hook me on drugs, on prescription pills. So I had to deal with that. I had severe asthma, which there were times that I'd be having attacks and they would hesitate to bring me to get to the doctor to get help and things like that because they'd have to drive to the city, right? So I remember having a lot of those panic attacks and things like that. It was always like my medical things were like pushed. It was always like I didn't feel important, right? I remember at a young age, my father would drive around crazy with me in the back of the truck. Back then, pickup trucks. The first truck he used to do this in, it had a cab on the back, but I remember he'd tell us to lay down in the back, me and my brother, and he would drive all over laughing, you know what I mean? Like, oh, we like the bumps, you know what I mean? And stuff like that. Finding out later on in life, like, it didn't stop there, trying to get life insurance policies on me when I was telling them that my cancer, you know, had came back, that they had found the cells starting to change. All of a sudden, I've got people calling me trying to come by the house to sign new life insurance policies, you know, and that probably got me to realize that, yeah, they probably had life insurance policies on me when I was young too, trying to sacrifice me, you know. But yeah, my life was that's what I mean. Like, there were many times. Then as I got older, then they got the new truck, right? And then it was, we could ride in the back of the truck and he could drive fast and all of that with no cab on the back of the truck, right? Right. So I always felt, and, you know, and even my parent or even my friends would be like, wow, your parents let you just ride. Like, so, you know, there were all these signs, but as a kid, you know, I didn't know. Right. So, I was always isolated, always in trouble, right? Never got praise, didn't get hugs and kisses. As a child that I can remember, that's why I struggled a lot in this world, not knowing how to show affection. I had to like learn and teach myself, you know, how to do that. Right? To killing pets. Where pets, you know, would just die while I was at school, disappear, breaking my heart by these little things, walking out in the middle of my graduation ceremony, not, you know, throwing me a celebration, a party like that. That affected me a lot, to forgetting birthdays, and things. So let's see. That's just the things that just came to me just today, right? And that's already like some heavy things, like never having these celebrations and things because I didn't get to have family be around, right? So there was just a lot of isolation, and then when they were around, it was always drug use, alcohol, them locking themselves in the room. Like, we were never allowed to be out in the house. It was always, we had to be in our bedrooms, so it was always sent to the bedrooms a lot. Like, we didn't have like the family dinners around the dinner table, you know. I remember things I would look forward to were little things like when my parents would come home late from the bar and be drinking, and then they'd want to make breakfast at 1, 2 o'clock, you know what I mean? Times like that. So the times that I did get to spend with them, they were always partying, right? And I remember the times I did get to be out in the living room with them when I was young, when they would be watching their horror movies and the things like that. That would lead to like my nightmares and stuff. And I remember, you know, getting very scared, you know, the young kids do. So I have had to work through like traumas and things that, you know, of seeing content, explicit things, right? and not feeling like that I could console, right? And I didn't feel like I could. I mean, they're showing me a lot of other graphic things, but I don't want to get too graphic. This is just to explain a little bit, right? So, you know, there was a lot of things that, you know, I didn't get help with. I didn't get taught. I didn't get shown. I never remember my father ever playing with me. It's like the attention I did get was always for show. It was like if we took vacations and things like that, it was to show off, right? When we would take our vacations was the only times that I got to visit with family and stuff. And there was just always drama and always things, right? So, and then what, so, you know, and it doesn't just stop, right, with the childhood. So then what my adult life looked like was when I was almost 18, I was told I had to get out or start paying $500, right, as soon as I turned 18. So by the time I turned 18, I got my first apartment, and moved out. And after that, then the fighting really started to get a lot more heavy between my parents both each getting arrested, and then they would call me. I would go get them out of jail, each of them, you know, and because I felt as though I was all that they had, you know. So then it turned into them still pulling on my energy, and times I'd be working and I'd get calls in the middle of the night of them taking a bunch of pills and suicide attempts. I remember one night, like, my father just told me he took a whole bunch of pills, and he was in a hotel and in this small town, and didn't tell me where he was, and hung up, you know. And I had called the police. Luckily, I had located. I had an officer that went out of his way to locate my father, because I was like hours away from the city that he was in. Actually located him by his truck, got him to the hospital, right, saved his life. There were other times that, like, I had called paramedics and saved my father's life with my mother there, her not getting him medical attention, which actually led to my father's death. Same thing, which hurt me a lot a few years ago, because I didn't even know he was out of the hospital. And I thought that he was finally, because they were both extremely toxic for each other. Ever since I was 18, I was trying to get them to separate, because I knew that they were extremely toxic for each other, and there was just so much abuse and everything. And my mother attempted suicide as well, slitting her throat. And that's what I mean. And I'm the first call after she does that. I'm the first call. So on the phone, you know, having to scream at my father, you know, get help and everything. And it was like he wanted me to be like, I know he was scared, but at the same time, like, I was there for all of that. But my mother got, you know, helicopter lifted out. She was saved, right, from that. But there's been vapor acts. Like, I've had to vapor act both of my parents due to their fighting. And there are suicide attempts, and me being the only one, right? So it's like so even with, like, me having to heal from all of that trauma, being isolated and alone, and me having to heal from all of that, and then it was like I've always had to, like, take care of my parents, right? My brother was thrown out of the house when he was 16 years old, because he was just being a teen and hanging out with his friends, and I don't even remember my brother being that bad, but it was the same thing. But it was like my brother was getting physically abused heavy by my parents, and we both were, but the physical abuse stopped after CPS got involved, because they had found my brother had went to the police because he was scared that he was going to get beaten one night. So then CPS, and this is back when I was teen, CPS there wasn't like DCF where they get involved as much as they do now. But yeah, we had that. And then there was reports too, because of, you know, me being young and being left alone. Like, the neighbors knew that I was alone, you know, a lot and stuff. So there was reports of stuff. So anyway, the physical abuse had to stop when literally like the CPS came and took some of the I want to say weapons that were created to use to abuse us, to punish us physically, were confiscated because my father made them. So yeah, it was like my brother, it was like even though he was kicked out, he had a family that took him in. His girlfriend, which he ended up marrying, and he's with now and has a family. But our relationship has never been able to recover because it was like he got away but left me. But then all the abuse and everything went to me. But the physical, it wasn't as much physically because it was more than they were scared of getting in trouble. So then it just really went emotional and detachment and all of that. That's why. So and I was, because they're 5 years apart, so I was 12. Yeah, like 11 or 12. So, that's what I mean. Then that's when things really started to fall apart because then my mother was very upset that my father had thrown my brother out. So the trauma and the fighting and everything that I had witnessed and endured, right, the rest of my years, right. So that's a little bit of my childhood and getting into my adult life, right. So all of the things on them, right, not to mention to their instability, like when I got pregnant with my daughter, I didn't want her around the I had 6 weeks her father left and took off and fled the state, so he didn't want to grow up and stop drinking, so I was abandoned again, and I didn't want to raise my daughter around that violence. So that's when she was 6 weeks old, I took off. I got an auto transport. I put my car up on an auto transport. I got a truck. I drove across the United States, took a road trip, and because I was moved from Florida to Minnesota, far away. So I thought, if anything, I can get down there and maybe get to connect with my lost family, get help and support. But by then, too much time had went by and everybody had grown apart. So it was too much, whatever. But anyway, so my parents followed me, so they both ended up following me down here. So the trauma didn't stop with the fighting and everything that they were doing to each other, and they always managed to pull me into it. So with that led them losing houses multiple times, leaving me in them while they moved out, leaving me for homeless like 5 times. One time because I always tried to be there for them, and I didn't want my children growing up not having a family, so I always tried to bring them, but it led to they were getting evicted from their apartment. So I was like, well, let's rent a house together then. I was set up. I had my own place for me and my children. I was a single mom. I was working 3 jobs, right? 2 jobs, and well, I'm like, all that. Anyway, so I was working 3 jobs, right? And they were losing their apartment. And I had just gotten a call, too, that finally the waiting list had opened up that I had been on for Section 8 housing, where I would have gotten my rent pretty much paid for. But I turned it down to help my parents, right? So we rented this house together. The house that we ended up renting, they had, of course, we put everything in my name, all the bills and everything. I just transferred everything over. I covered all the deposits. They started to not have the money to be able to give me for the bills. So then I got really behind on the bills. And on my birthday, they decided that they were going to move out because I had just started seeing a guy. 2 weeks into seeing somebody, my mother got really jealous of that. They decided to sneak out. I had hurt them the night before. They weren't even going to tell me. But anyway, they did. They moved out on my birthday, didn't pay withheld rent, didn't pay the rent, didn't pay the bills. So ended up losing that house, right? And that was the last time. That was the final time that I ever let them live with me. But there were times that when I was younger, struggling with being a single mom and stuff, where I would go stay with them and they would lose the house, they would leave. So this was... Wait, no, this wasn't even the final time. This was the final time with my father. Because even after all of that, which leads me to where I am now, I started to separate and isolate because I started to see that even amongst all of the trauma, it wasn't going to stop, and that it was starting to be more harmful for my children to be around toxic grandparents because they just couldn't get their stuff together, right? That I started to keep my distance. So I'd had distance, I'd got away. And then when I got pregnant with my rainbow child here, I wanted to make amends. I wanted my parents to get to know my daughter. So I actually had my mother come stay with me for a couple days before I was getting ready to have her. And to see that everything was okay, she wasn't drinking, everything seemed fine. So I was like, all right, so you want to watch my children while I'm in the hospital? Because I always had to have induction, whatever. Like, I have to have doctors deliver my babies, right? Because my body doesn't fully deliver the babies because of damage to my female parts because of the trauma of the physical abuse when I was younger. So, because sexual abuse and other things, take it from me, I didn't even go into those details. So anyway, which led to a virus that attacked my cervix, which led to cancer. It's also why I decided to have my children young, because I was told that if things kept progressing that I would not be able to have children. So I decided to have them early or whatever. So anyway, let me go back to when so she seemed okay, I was excited. I was getting ready to have my daughter. So I said, all right, so you watch your children, here at the house. I had everything planned out, all their food, bought everything, She just had to be at the house with them because I didn't leave my children. So I was a stay-at-home mom after that. And I went into these relationships with people that I thought God was sending my way because I was asking for the help of that, right, where I could be at home with my children but I was attracting and trauma bonding with men that had these same traumas, that didn't feel that they were lovable enough. So yes, they helped me, apply for the bills and the rent, things like that, so I could be at home with them. But anyway, but no, when I was in the hospital, I had just gotten induced, and literally my mom just took off. She called me, said, I'm fine with your daughter, and just took off. So luckily, my boyfriend at the time, that had never even been alone with my kids before, went to the house right away. She was only a couple miles away, and watched the children for 24 hours, while I was able to have my daughter. And I had to get released early. I remember crying and being so scared, because I'm always so scared right after they're born and stuff, and because of everything, like, I need help, but I had to get home to my children or whatever. But that's when I knew that, like, things were done right. Anyways, I brought my daughter one time to meet my father before he had died at a nursing home that I thought he was safe away from my mother. And because as my father was getting older, they had 13 years apart from them. So it's like, as you start to get older, you start to awaken. So he was starting to let go of some of these demons and these things that were controlling him. And he stopped drinking. He was still drugging and doing pills and things like that. His addiction just changed throughout the years. But as he was getting older, so I was still light working up to the end. But my mother was still drinking and dosing and getting invoked by these entities heavily. So that's why I'd kind of given up. And I was working more with my father. So anyway, I wasn't speaking to her after that. So anyway, my father got to meet her one time. Actually, she did get to see him twice. It stopped by one time, but I wouldn't go in the house. I didn't want to bring her in the house. So anyway, I got to see her 2 times before he died. But anyway, so where was I going with this? I kept the distance right, and I thought, well, maybe after my father had died, and I let a year go by, and I thought, you know what, let me try. My mother was falling apart, same thing. She's about to lose her apartment. She had sold the house, got this apartment. She couldn't afford all the bills, and I thought, you know what, I told her there's no drinking. There's no drinking. Let's get a house together. So this was the final time where I got a house. Got a house big enough where she could have a room. And I moved in there with my twin. My twin was, I finally got together. I made him wait almost 7 years. I told him my life's a mess, my kids, my parents, everything I was going through. I always turned down my love. I always kind of was like, I can't have love, I got to raise my kids. And finally, after my dad died, like, he was there, he reached out to me. And that's when I was like, you know what, my life's a mess, whatever, let's try to have our love connection. But I messed up. My mother, I thought, let my mother, maybe now that my father's not there, maybe she's changed, maybe she's healed. But all she did is, the game was still on to try to destroy me and my twin. So that's what happened. The games began at the house. She started to get possessed. She did things like slashing the car tires, attacking my children. She ended up getting arrested, which led to us losing the house, losing everything. She had repossessed the car because I was paying for the vehicle, but because I was a stay-at-home mom, I couldn't get it financed in my name, and I had signed over my car to my ex for him to get a new vehicle. So I had lost my car. So she did that. So I didn't want to bring that car into my new relationship, so, she agreed, yeah, I'll co-sign. So I paid for everything, but it was, then she slashed the tires off that, and then she got upset, repossessed the car. So literally, but she ended up getting locked up for a couple months, where the state was going to go after her for the charges. But even me and my son went, and we didn't want to press the charges because we know that she was just, she gets invoked by the spirits because she infuses with alcohol and doesn't realize that then the devil gets to her through all of her woundings. And when you drink, you're infusing with spirits. You're literally embodying these demons, right? So she got released the day that the police showed up. 24 hours. We had 24 hours to get the stuff out, but she got released the final day, so she would have had the chance to get all of her things but by then there was already people at the house recovering everything that was there. But anyway, and that was 2 years ago now, so that's why for 2 years now, I've not had a home, where I've had to move and travel and be living in hotels and motels and all that, trying to recover from all of that, because the same thing, she held the rent, she held the bill just like before. So we got behind on the bills, then having an eviction, and been struggling ever since, while still being attacked and dealing with all the trauma that was caused. And while still targeting my family, turned my daughter against my daughter, she didn't know that she was getting turned against me. So my children have been targeted. Then outside family that was never there, the fathers, they never cared to come around till I got involved with my twin. So they were coming in and causing all of these traumas and everything. So that's what I mean. These are the stories, and that's just my background. That's not even my twin's background. We had matching traumas. He had cancer as well. I would not let them cut on me. I would not let them cut the cancer out of me. I refused, and I went to herbal healing in different ways. That's why the cancers went back and forth within my body, but he went to the surgical procedure and the injections and all of that. So that's a huge trauma. And, you know, it's like his family, you know, is very supportive and brings him every 6 weeks to the clinic. And it's hard for him to not, like, I remember trying to take over, like, I can bring him to the, but it was just so I know that they use that wounding as a way to control him. And that's what scares him now is, you know, I know that it's the same thing within his family. The entities attacking his family, getting his family to do spell work of black magic. Say, I broke the spell. I got away from my family for him. Even though my mother was tearing us apart, like, I seen it and I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I let go of her and everyone for him, but he can't just let go of his family for me. So literally, like, it's been me trying to battle the demons and everything out of him. Anytime he goes around the family or talks to him and his mother, every single night, every single day, all throughout the day, sending him messages, sending him the invocations every single night. And it's been a constant battle. That's what I mean. And it's gotten him hypnotized and gotten him to turn against me and all of these things that we've been up against, and the children fighting and everything. That's what I mean. These stories are not for the weak. You know how hard it is to have to let go of my twin because it's the entity within him that's not allowing him to wake up, and his family talked him into getting vaxxed because of his cancer that he had and all of that. And it takes even harder if you have been vaxxed to awaken. It just delayed it is all it did, but it's hard. But you have to get yourself away from these things. So that's what I mean there. It's this constant battle. Like that's why the chosen, like, you have to isolate, because anybody that has woundings, and so many people are drawn to you through these woundings. And then we were born into these families that were so dark, and most of them didn't realize the blessing that they started to harvest the energy and attack that earth angel because they didn't know how to love that earth angel. They didn't know that was their rescue from God, and now those families are under judgment, but they're not receiving their judgment, because if they're still around you, that's why you start to see things fall apart. And that's why it's literally like you have to walk away and not look back, right? Because you gotta not, you don't want to see them getting their karma and their things, believe me. But that's what I mean, is it's very challenging, and that's why I've been talking about my story where he had an entity in him, and it got so high after these portals were open that I used to be able to provoke him and get the entity and extract the entity out, but I couldn't this last time, where he had attacked me, and now he's back with family, being happily controlled by the entity. That's what I mean. These stories are not for the weak, right? But that's what I mean. On this full moon, I'm releasing and I'm surrendering all of that. That's what I mean. Going on my mission work. I'll never give up on my mission and awakening souls to the false teachings. So many are controlled by these entities, by the Jezebel spirits, because they don't realize the false teachings and indoctrinations. That Jesus was crucified. He was killed for his teachings that we are here teaching. And everybody goes around, the teachings are wrong. That everybody is, it's hidden occultism in the religions worshiping the crucifixion. He was murdered. He did not sacrifice, like whatever they say. Oh, he sacrificed his. No, that's what I mean, and that's why his family is heavily, and that's why my family, too, was indoctrinated into these falsities, right? And they did the same thing to him, heavily indoctrinating him, putting him in Bible camp, school, all of that stuff. Everybody's walking around, I can't say everybody, but these false indoctrinations, right? Worshipping the crucifixion, that you don't realize eating the blood, drink the blood. Oh my gosh, it's you're worshiping the sacrifice. These false teachings, right? That's what I mean, like, no. That's why I was turned away from the churches and away from the Bible. Like, I know, it's just they corrupted it. They infiltrated, they hijacked it. But that's what I mean is I've had the voice of God speaking to me ever since I was a child. And I've always listened to that and my angels. That I've never needed to go to a book for my belief. You know, it's within. Finding God is within. You find him within, not through teachings, not through worship. Everybody's worshiping false idols. They have you worship Jesus, which even in Hebrew, Son of God, an extension of God. Jesus was here teaching we are all one with God, divine source, and that is why they sacrificed him and they flipped it, and they have everybody worshiping that and wearing the crosses, and it's wrong, but all of that's going to be revealed. People are going to start to awaken up to this false indoctrination, and they're going to set themselves free. So anyway, I know that was heavy, but that's just my story. You wouldn't look at me and you wouldn't, and that's just what I could think of to put this together into this reading. This doesn't even explain all of the pain and the heartache, and that's just a little bit of just the betrayal with my family and a little bit of what my childhood was growing up like. Okay, it's not even explaining, right? How everybody has been turned against me. Every single friend, family, and then I'm constantly aligning with people that still seek out my light for healing, but I never let that steal my light. And even being broken and being hurt, still, I kept shining my light on this world and helping others. And even in this situation, right, and all the people that I align with, I will never stop helping people. And that's why for a lot of you, like, you know that, the unconditional love, that's why Most High has been isolating us to heal and get us full and complete. And yeah, so just remember what all of this was for, right, is we are the true leaders into the new earth, right? And that's what I mean, like, just don't ever forget that, right? All right, hopefully this helped. I know this went long. I know I disclosed a lot of stuff, but I wanted to get it out there. So, because I'm releasing all that with this Cancer full moon, I'm embracing the new. I will never give up, like, sending healing and things like that. Like, even my twin, like, I sent him, like, a whole bunch of messages with all of these things, like, heal yourself, all this, like, but I know that I have to do it from afar for my protection. And for some of you, like I said, I'll never give up on my children. And, like, I've been seeing that on the collective, like, yeah, you got to move away from the darkness, because a lot of this is entrapment. And even my last tarot reading was, like, these blockages and all of this, you know, you got to learn to walk away from it. And that's what I mean. Some of you are really, like, you may even need to walk away later and give up on this twin flame and things like that. Because ultimately, like, that's the only way to try to save them, is loving up. That's what I mean. Like, he showed up at 3 o'clock in the morning last night, the middle of the night. He had a lift here because his emotions are so high, but at the same time, he had so many entities still attached to him, and I had to send him back away. Love may be enough, but that's what I mean. If he doesn't wake up, if he doesn't do the healing and stop these entities from getting in, he'll always bring the devil right to me. So for my protection, like, I have to let him go. to do that healing, to find his way through love. And that's what I mean. And I'm going on my mission. So that's what I mean. Like, they get heavy. So don't get caught up in this revenge. If you want revenge, if you want those things for people, you're binding yourself to them. You're not fully healing. I look at all of the things. So if you're sitting back and you're looking at your story, maybe this is going to power to be like, wow, yeah, I didn't have that bad of a story. Or maybe you did. And that's to let you know that you're not the only one. Because I don't know who all is going to align with this reading. But that's what I mean. I forgive everyone and everything. I forgive my parents for everything that they did. Do you see? Because they did not realize that they were embodying these demonic forces. They did not realize that the religion, like my mother is so heavily, like she has her faith for God, but she worships, Jesus and everything and the false teachings and all of that. And that's fully not, it's just like the worshiping, waiting for the rescue. The rescue is you. It's you rescuing yourself by you healing, going within and embodying God, divine sort, you connecting, like you save yourself. So all these people that are waiting for the saving, no, you have to save yourself. And this is like many are not going to be able to come. The ones that cannot do the healing cannot let go of the false teachings. And this is this divide, this separate. That's what I mean. The ones that can are aligning, and we're going to be ascending to this new earth. So it's a big test of the soul, and you need to know, for a lot of you, like, yeah, you may want to save, like for some, it's just like their final test. This isn't the first incarnation for a lot of these individuals. 5200. That's why I said, that's why I feel so many of the 144 like we at the end, man. This is like the end for sure. Like, that's what I mean. So many families, we as earth angels incarnated now. We incarnated because we were the final judgment. And if the families turned against, like, that's it. So you have to let him go, and you have to heal. That's what I mean. Like, it's not meant for you to have a life of suffering. And even if that means, like, that's what I mean. So to me, the final thing, like I'm not gonna stay. I can't stay. Like, that's what I mean. For some, like, literally, God's like, nope. That's why I said, like, the final angels have been freed, because it was like, it had to get so intense to where my twin attacked me. Because he was still embodying that demon. It was the first time he had ever really attacked me like that. And I knew it was the entity who was attacking me. But I also knew I had to get away. And he can't be around me if he can't get the entities out. So for some of you, you need to have those heavy boundaries right now. Literally, like, you physically cannot, like, I feel ill anytime he comes around, because I feel the entities that are running through him. And I know that it's through his family and his wounds. But the ones that cannot heal cannot come forward. That's it. It doesn't matter who they are. It's at a soul level at this point. And you need to know that. So stop holding on to, oh, they're my twin. That's the main reason that I knew I needed to record this today and put my story out there. Like, anybody that can't give up drugs and alcohol, you don't get to go. Because all that's going to do is bind you. And you need to know that. Love and light to all of you. Sorry that this was so heavy, but this is a Cancer full moon. So it's a big one. That's why it's starting with this. Family, relationships, all of that. But like I said, I forgive all of them, because they're under their own judgments. And a lot of it was due to, the wrong teachings, the entities, Like, it was, like, that's what I mean. Like, that was, like, the biggest ultimate betrayal on humanity. So there's so many souls out there that they think that they're okay because the teachings told them, oh, if you ask for forgiveness, you go confess your sins, that you're forgiven, that it's all good, you're going to heaven, just to entrap their souls, to make them reincarnate over and over and over again, to trick them to the true awakening, tricking them, depriving them of really connecting with God and Most High. That's why many of us earth angels that are here are very powerful beings. And some, like, okay, they're gonna stop me there. Love and light to all of you. Bye, guys.